All right, everybody, we are back. We are live on main stage. We apologize for the delay, technical issues, but we have them worked out and we are ready to go. This panel is going to be moderated by Marissa Gold of Intuit Parenting, and I'm going to give her the floor. We're going to be talking about essential nutrition and the first 1,000 days. So take it away, Marissa.
Great. Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to be here on our third and final day at SoCal Wellness. A huge shout out to both Tracy and Laura for putting on such an incredible event. I have to say, I've been jumping in and out of sessions, and I've learned so much, and I'm so excited. I've decided that this is the impetus that I've needed, and that 2021 is going to be the year of really getting into gear, all these things that I've been talking about doing for so long. So I'm super excited to be here. My name is Marissa Gold. I have a parenting company called Intuit Parenting. I work with parents who have children newborn to 16 years old. I like to say at all ages and stages of development. Everything from sleep education, learning to eat nutritionally, which we're going to talk all about today, and all the way up into the tween and teen years. I run social and emotional support groups, and later on I'm actually hosting a breakout section for children with and mental health, which I'm also super excited about. So anyone who's watching can join me there. And I am joined today right now by these three other lovely ladies that come to us from different areas in the nutrition world as it specifically pertains to younger children. And we're talking about the first 1,000 days of life. And one of the things that I have studied and that I really use in my practice with parents is teaching how the brain wires up in the first 3-5+ years of life. And we know so much now that we didn't know even a dozen years ago. I have two girls, they're 12 and 15. And so I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum, though very much in the tween and teen years. But it is so incredibly important to having this conversation, because what we know now about the way that we develop, our babies develop in the very first few years of life is of paramount importance. And so anything that we can do to really help set the stage, the foundation for later on, the onus is on us as parents to do that. And so I'm really excited to be joined today by Tina White from Brainiac Kids, from Katie Thompson from Square Baby, and with Dr. Katie Friedman from Child Life Essentials. And I just have to say, and Dr. Katie Friedman's also a pediatrician. I'm going to let you each introduce yourself further in a moment. But I just have to say, and I'm not paid to say this, I have been using Child Life Essentials with my kids since my 15-year-old was 6 months old. My favorite one is First Defense. I swear by it. I literally, in preschool, when the kids are coming home with a cold every 3 to 4 weeks, and, in cold and flu season, and you're like, So my kids never got sick. And I swear by the fact that I was using First Defense from Child Life Essentials. So
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like a lot of people, as a pediatrician, I get asked a lot about vitamin supplementation, but typically it usually occurs when they go to school, right? The runny nose, the cough, the cold, they go to preschool. Now everyone wants to know, how do I keep my child healthy? And I'm so glad that we're focusing on these first 1,000 days of life, because there's such an opportunity and a window for us to help support their development. It's such a critical time in their lives and in their development, and to be able to educate people on vitamin supplementation, because I do feel like, I don't know how you felt, Marissa, like in the beginning, you're scared about your baby, what you should give them, what you shouldn't give them. And to me, education is everything. When I can educate someone, or when someone else can educate someone, you're really giving them the tools that they need to kind of push away the fear and do what they need to do, what's best, make the best decision for their baby. So I'm so glad that you said that. I'm so glad you love it, because
I think that I couldn't agree more with you. And that's what I'm so excited about this event and talking with you lovely ladies, because I do think that if we approach parenting where we as the experts are educating the consumers, then they can make really intelligent decisions and bring those decisions into the home. So with that, I would love it if, ladies, you would introduce yourself. Why don't we start with you, Tina, with Brainiac Kids, which I love your product also. My kids, you weren't around when mine were eating from pouches, etc.
We have not been around very long. We're still pretty new. So I've worked for years in marketing and advertising. I actually started in the agency world on everything from technologies to beauty, booze, and then of course food, and love being like working on food is so rewarding because it's such a big part of our lives. But then, you know, as I was getting older and having my kids are 3 and 5, I really wanted to be working on a brand that was relevant to me in my life, my family. So when I came across the founders of Brainiac, Jonathan and Mark, 2 dads themselves, each of them have 3 kids, by the way. And I learned that they were trying to create a new brand that really focused on brain development, brain health. It was sort of a natural, you know, no pun intended, no brainer to make the jump and help them get the message out, and get Brainiac off the ground. So yeah, Brainiac is, you know, the first company focused on brain foods and snacks for the family.
I love it, because one of the things that I always talk about when teaching parents how to feed their kids, and Dr. Katie, you probably do this too, is really reinforcing brain foods, right? So to have products that are like literally brain is in the title, it's like such a natural, easy transition. So I'm really glad that you're here. Katie Thompson from Square Baby, welcome, and please tell us who you are and a little bit about your product.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Katie Thompson. I'm a registered dietitian. And I got my start out as the first nutritionist for Starbucks in 2004.
Wow.
All their menu, but I started out on the regulatory affairs team, which means I was in charge of every nutrition facts panel and every claim that went out the door. That really taught me how products are marketed, and had my first baby in 2008, cruised the baby food aisle because I was working crazy hours. I definitely needed the convenience of store-bought food at that time, and was so disappointed in what I found. I thought so many meals were misleadingly marketed that oftentimes, you know, a lot of applesauce, while the product might look like it was a balanced meal, might show you avocados and, you know, other healthy ingredients and kale and all these things, but very often they were high sugar, you know, high fruit heavy purees. And so I found myself wondering, you know, how do I know that I've given my kid the right amount of the right foods each day? And so I left my job to figure out how to solve this for parents, because I know that, you know, no one's going to really take these recommendations from the USDA or AAP and to design their own menu to make sure your kid's getting enough protein or vegetables. So I developed the Square Meal System, which ladders up to 100% daily nutrition. So So 2 to 3 of our meals per day, depending on baby's age, is 100% of their daily recommended fruits, veggies, grains, and protein. And because they're balanced meals, they have half the sugar and twice the protein and healthy fats as most pouches.
Great. I love it. I wish that you had been around when mine were little, because I definitely had that feeling when I would go, and I would go to Whole Foods, but literally even like there was only Earth's Best on the shelf, or I got into like the Whole Foods movement and was just doing that. But it was definitely challenging when mine were little. So I'm so glad that parents now have all these options. I just think it's incredible. And Dr. Katie, you are a pediatrician and you probably get so many questions. So tell us a little bit about you and how you've gotten into this area.
So I am a board certified pediatrician. I actually work in the emergency room. So it's been an interesting year for me.
And where are you located? Sorry.
I'm in South Florida. I'm in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm also a mom. And when I have a twin sister who's a veterinarian, actually. So she's a veterinarian and I'm a pediatrician. So when we started having kids and pets, we got influx of questions. Like everyone texted me, what is this rash? I can't get the fever down. How do I crate train? What food? And so we created a parenting website called Forever Freckled, where my 3 sisters came together, and we basically are like a wellness website where we answer all sorts of medical questions. And in that, I am a brand ambassador for a lot of companies. I'm a medical correspondent for Lifetime, and I'm an author. I do a lot of different type of work in the media space. But we do brand ambassadorships. And it's so funny that you said you love Child Life Essentials, because I actually reached out to them because it's so important for me and my sisters that because we do have kids, that when we do work with a company, they have the same exact mission that we do. And the special thing about Child Life Essentials is that it's created by a pediatrician. And the fact that I am a pediatrician, you know, this is somebody that, as I have myself, like dedicated their whole lives to learning, understanding how the pediatric body works, what it needs to be healthy, what it needs when it's sick. So the fact that it was created by a pediatrician really, really appealed to me. The other thing that I love about this company, and a lot of things I think it's important for people to know, is that there are a lot of vitamin companies out there, but Child Life Essentials is the only brand that only exclusively does pediatrics. So that means all of their time, energy, money, community is all about the pediatric population. You're not dealing with someone that has an adult line and a kids line. It's only for kids, and that's what makes it so special. They really, they're all about the parent. They're all about the pediatric health. Their Instagram's amazing. I really feel like everyone should go there and just click on it and follow. Not only because I do lives there to help people with their daily obstacles about newborn, like, breastfeeding, sleep training, all those kinds of things, but it's a community where like people like you are going to get information, and it's just a beautiful place to kind of learn. And I love being on their expert panel. I love being one of their experts because immune boosting vitamin supplementation is something that I truly, truly believe in.
Yeah, I do too. One of the things that I think is so interesting about this conversation is that we, yesterday I sat in on a panel discussion about supplements for adults. And so some questions came up specifically about children, and they were starting to answer them. And as someone who works with kids and not really with women, they're very different, as you all know, right? And so they were starting to ask questions. And so in the chat, I said, please make sure you check with your pediatrician before you're placing your child on supplements and nutrients. To which the response was kind of like, well, your pediatrician doesn't know. And my response was, and what I want to be very clear and very intentional about this conversation for whomever is watching, is that children's bodies and even teenagers' bodies, as we move up through development, are very different hormonally and what they need than adult bodies. And so to work with companies that have the research behind them, such as Brainiac and Square Baby and Child Life Essentials, it is so incredibly important to make sure that parents are doing that, because children really are built differently and function differently. So I just wanted to set that tone as well for today. So I'd like to ask you all, and I'll start with you, Dr. Katie, if you can just maybe talk to me a little bit about why you feel it's so important to pay attention to the first 3 years of life and really be thinking about, what we're putting in our children's bodies during that first window of life and development.
Sure. So, you are doing the most development in those from conception to 3 years of life. They are constantly developing, changing, growing. And it's such a crucial time that they get those nutrients and supplements that they need in order to support that whether it's brain development, whether it's development, whatever it is, knowing what's in their food, as these beautiful women already made sure that their nutrients and have companies based upon that, as well as their vitamin supplementation. So, like, for instance, like, a lot of people will ask me, is there anything that I can do when I'm pregnant to help with brain development? And the answer is yes, but a lot of people don't know that, right? Like, yes, you can read to them. That's always very helpful. Yes, we've always heard, like, you play music, Mozart, that's helpful. But what you can actually physically take and do is take DHA. And DHA is an omega fat, and it's the building block, the fuel for brain development. So that when we take them as women, when we're pregnant, we're actually supplying that to our developing baby and our brain. And a lot of times women don't know, like, they feel like it might be in the prenatal vitamin, but in actuality, it's not. So it's important that you go ahead and check that prenatal vitamin and see whether it is or it isn't, and make sure that you get it. A lot of women, especially in the first trimester, suffer with nausea, and sometimes they can be very fishy, when you take cod oil and DHA. But I will tell you guys, because I still take, my kids are 10 and 7, and I still take this every single day because I like it for myself, for brain development and for, just alertness. I've continued to take it. But it absolutely has no fishiness to it whatsoever. And I think that's really, really important when you're pregnant, because when you're like cooking a baby and you're sacrificing a lot, to know that something that you're taking isn't going to make you feel nauseous is super, super important. So just starting this, if anyone, like, you leave here and you go buy DHA, just doing that is helping your baby develop while you are in utero, why that baby is developing in the uterus before they even come out. And so it's just really important that we educate ourselves and focus in on that, because I think that there's a real lack of education of that crucial time. We don't really know as parents what to give them, what not to give them, whether it's vitamin supplementation. That can be really scary when you have a newborn. You're not sure what you should be giving and what you shouldn't be giving. Foods to introduce to your baby when they're toddlers, like, spices, allergic reactions. There's a ton of things that people are nervous about, and so sometimes they avoid. In reality, like, we have this crucial time frame when they're developing, and we can support that development, and we should. So that's why it's so great that we're doing this, because by educating people, we're breaking down those fearful barriers, and we're telling them, listen, you could do something as simple as, give your baby this pouch or try this vitamin supplementation, and you're going to help them to grow and develop. And that's really what we want to do as parents, right?
Yeah. And just to add on, I think what we've seen is that there's more conversation happening around the prenatal vitamins and even formula for some of these really, really critical nutrients for brain development, DHA, EPA, choline. But it really starts to drop off when we start talking about solid foods. And, I wish I had Square Baby too when I was giving my kids solid food, but so many solid food options for those young years, the infants and toddlers. They're not really focused on the brain nutrients. So maybe they're focused on, one element, protein or calcium, things that are very familiar to parents. But the really critical nutrients for brain development, which is, happening during these early years and into the older toddlers for that matter. As you said, Marissa, my 3-year-old the other day was telling me, Mommy, I can't go to bed. My brain won't let me close my eyes.
Mindfulness. But I know, I have a kid like that, so I totally know. She cannot. She has a really hard time shutting it off. It's hard.
So their little brains, from when you just see them taking their first movements to language processing into social emotional when they're starting to get into preschool. So we just, it's really, really critical. I'm so glad you said it, Dr. Katie, about if there's one thing people can take away from today, it's these nutrients that might sound scary if you don't know about them, but we need to normalize DHA and choline as calcium and protein, and some of these other nutrients have been normalized.
Mm-hmm. And just to add on to that, certainly the first 1,000 days is so important for all the physical development that Tina and Dr. Friedman really laid out. I think another consideration too is palate development. So thinking about these first bites of food and how we train the next generation to grow up and love veggies and proteins and herbs and spices and the foods that we're going to feed them, on the table as soon as they're ready. And what we've seen so much in the market is, a lot of these fruit heavy purees, which really aren't helping that next generation grow up to love the taste of, bitter and umami and all these different flavors. So just a note on palate development. The other thing is the motor development as well. So the spoon feeding skills and things that are so important in these early stages.
And Katie, I can't tell you how many people ask me though, as a pediatrician, my kid is such a picky eater. They only eat chicken nuggets and French fries. And I'm like, well, what do you give them every day? And it's like, well, they don't eat anything unless it's chicken nuggets and French fries. And I'm like, but that's because they're not getting any type of variety. Their palate's not being accustomed to anything else except for that. And so I'm so glad that you said that, because starting that earlier on is really, really important. They're all building blocks in order to get us to a child that's willing to eat salmon or willing to eat fruits and vegetables when they get a little bit older, 3, 4, when they have that picky phase, around 1, 2. It's important to continually give them options and variety. So it's a good topic, because it's one of the biggest questions I get asked. My kid's a picky eater, help me.
Well, one thing that I would want to clarify for everyone too is, we put these nutrients into things that are a little, easier for kids to just naturally like an applesauce or a yogurt, because it's just one extra tool in your toolbox. Like, yes, if you have a child that's eating salmon, amazing. My daughter used to, when she was 1.5, she used to eat it by the fistful, and now she won't touch it. I know we'll get there eventually again because I'm dedicated to it. But right now she's not eating a lot of salmon. So we'll try, we'll keep putting it in front of her, which, I know eventually again, we'll get around to it. But having one more tool in the toolbox, whether it's supplements, whether it's snacks, so that you're constantly having, parenting wins throughout the day that you can feel really good about.
I also think it's so important to remember that there's all different styles of parenting. And for parents who are really on the go, they want to have healthy options. And so, the way that someone might feed their child and whether they're making their foods or purchasing Square Baby or is very different than someone who maybe is a dual income 2-career family home where they don't have the time to be doing that. Their kids are going back and forth to daycare, potentially other extracurriculars. I know we're in the pandemic. I'm, like pre and post, right? And so, one of the things that I think is so excellent about having Square Baby and Brainiac, we have these options to really present to our children that are healthy. And so as a working parent, we don't have to be concerned that we're just putting a bag of Dorito chips in their face. We can actually give them really healthy options when we can't actually cook. And so, exactly what you were saying, Tina, I think it's so important that we have these options and it becomes part of a toolkit. And that's one of the things that I really like to think about parenting is, when I work with parents, it's all about providing them a toolkit for whatever stage of life their kids are so that they can have, as you said so succinctly, these parenting wins throughout the day. And to that end, also, I just want to say that one of the things that I think is so important about this 1,000 days, and Katie and Dr. Katie, you both said this, is setting the foundation. And, I work with so many families who have kids between 3 and 6 who have stopped eating or eating, as you said, Dr. Katie, like 5 things. Mm-hmm. And so I love when parents are putting all these different types of foods in front of their children early on and they're just continuing to do it, that really lays the foundation for becoming a better eater. And what I see all the time, and just to share with you, Tina, is that, and Dr. Katie knows this also, that kids go through these very picky stages, but if their palate is being continually developed and the food is still being placed in front of them and they're seeing their parents eat it and model it in front of them, they will come back to it and they will become, and because I have a 12 and a 15-year-old, I can tell you from experience, I've run the gamut. I had kids who ate salmon when they were babies, stopped eating everything, ate literally chicken nuggets, albeit healthy chicken nuggets, and macaroni and cheese. We did that whole phase. Even though I was putting broccoli in front of them, they wouldn't touch it. And now they've come back full circle and they're really healthy, great eaters. But that's because they were introduced to those things early on. And I never stopped putting it in front of them, even when they wouldn't actually put it in their mouths. And one of the things that I think is important for parents to understand is that you can't force your child to eat. It's one of the things that we can't physically put food in their body. Sometimes I wish we could, but we can't. So as parents, what we can do is we can model, especially in the early years of life, when children are really watching and picking up habits based on what they're seeing in front of them, we can model these full palate plates and eating all different kinds of foods. And so that's what your companies are really doing, helping parents to put that in front of kids. So I applaud you for that. So Katie and Tina, both of your companies really focus on nutrient-dense and whole foods. Can you tell us why it's so essential and what they both have to offer? And why don't we start with you, Katie, from Square?
Okay, great. Yeah, first I want to just echo exactly what you were saying, Marissa. I think the realities of life as a mom is that not every meal is going to be, sat down at a table with a spoon eating it. We need the conveniences, and it is so important. And to also just reiterate, I too have had, my kids are now almost 9 and 12. When my 9-year-old was 2, he would eat salad off my plate like there was no vegetable. He wouldn't shove down his throat, and I thought I was the best mom ever. And now he's 8, and he's like, I have to negotiate at every mealtime, but I know he's going to come back through at the other side. So just for you mamas out there who are like, oh my God, my kid is a struggle, just stay calm, stay consistent, keep the variety coming. So on to nutrient density. Yes. So Obviously we think about this with babies and making sure that the food that we give them is providing the nutrients that they need, the variety that they need. But I also think about, older kiddos and making sure that, as they're having snacks and other foods during the day, that it really counts, right? To kind of avoid as much as we can the empty calories and some of the fun foods, and seeing where we can fit these snacks in that truly are nutrient dense. With Square Baby, all of our meals are made with organic whole foods, kind of gently cooked, steamed like they would be at home, and then delivered fresh right to your doorstep. So we're trying to provide that like at home, homemade baby food that is possible for most people to have the time to make.
And for Brainiac, we, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to focus, at least in our initial set of products, the things that are really accessible and easy for kids, because as you said, Marissa, it's not healthy or it's not nutritious if they don't eat it. So starting with something that we know kids love, snack time favorites, is kind of a starting point for us. We have a fantastic science nutrition advisory board that tells us and advises us on what are some of the most critical nutrients for brain development, and the ones that are the hardest to get. So even if you are a family that has the means and knows to put salmon on the plate, some people don't know, some people don't have the means. It's not something that's maybe accessible every day to you either. So it's really hard to get. Like a kid who is 2 to 4 should be getting almost 200 milligrams a day, according to the World Health Organization. So we're trying to pack in as much as we can into these foods that kids like to eat, not ever to be kind of the complete nutrition that you should get for the day. You should absolutely be having your lunches and dinners and more variety, but just to get those nutrients that are harder to get from foods, from whole foods throughout every single day.
Great. Dr. Katie, can you speak to the types of questions that come up as it pertains to like what you should actually, in your practice, what parents are asking you, like what you should be giving to kids in the first 3 years, but very specifically?
So it just depends on what phase they're in, right? So, a lot of when I have parents that come in the newborn phase, they really were focusing on like vitamin D supplementation, which I do want to touch base with a little bit, because it's as important as brain development. And it's really important that parents understand, or mothers understand, particularly because they're the ones that are breastfeeding, that if you are breastfeeding, you need to be supplementing your baby with vitamin D. Your pediatrician is going to ask you to do that. That a lot of people do know and understand. What a lot of people don't know, in my experience with patients, is that even if you're doing both, like if you're breastfeeding and you're formula feeding, you still are going to need a supplement with vitamin D. Vitamin D, because it's not enough. You need 400 IUs a day, and that's not enough from the formula. You have to, if you're supplementing with breast milk and you're going back and forth. So having vitamin supplementation is super, super important. Your pediatrician is going to ask you within your first appointment to start that supplementation. So making sure that you have it ahead of time, put it on your registry. A lot of things that people don't know about is vitamin K. Vitamin K, I like to call these like the peanut butter and jelly of bone development.
I love that.
Yeah, the ketchup and mustard.
Love it.
A lot of people know about vitamin D, but they don't know about vitamin K. And so basically vitamin D allows you to absorb calcium, but vitamin K, outside of also helping with clotting and those types of things, it is what allows the calcium to go from the bloodstream into the bone. So I like to call it the Uber of like calcium. So these two together are going to optimize your bone development. And it's really, really important that when you are in the newborn phase, that you are supplementing your baby, especially if you're breastfeeding exclusively. So when I have children that are newborn, that's really our focus, is breastfeeding, formula feeding. Are they getting enough breast milk? Are they gaining weight? What supplementation do they need? Those are the big questions that I get in the newborn phase. In the toddler phase, we kind of already touched upon it, but it's really about the picky eating. Is my kid getting a well-balanced meal, Katie? A lot of people ask me that. Like, if all I can give them is chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese, are we not having the nutrients that we need? That's why, Child Life Essentials has vitamins for every stage of development. They have a multivitamin. They have DHA for children. They have a lot of different supplementations. It's important to go look them up if you are feeling like you're not able to supplement certain vitamins and supplementation. But that's a lot of our focus with the toddlers is like, am I getting what I need? Is my child eating macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets every day, getting what they need inside of their body? And then as they get older, with growth development and adolescence, that's a whole different, then you start to kind of move into like body dysmorphia and, the way that we discuss healthy diets and how people view themselves, adolescents. It's really important that when we do talk about health, whether a child is overweight or underweight, that we're talking about healthy habits and not necessarily weight control, right? So it's not about losing weight, but rather making healthy choices as a family and putting the fuel in your body that you need in order to make your body as healthy as possible, making healthy decisions. And so, it just depends on what stage they really come in to see me. But I hope that was kind of helpful in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's really great.
The point about the older kids too, I think I just wanted to add, Marissa, is that whatever the stage is, whether it's an infant, a toddler, adolescent, like the idea of feeding your brain and it goes beyond those early developmental years. It gets more into, your ability, focus, memory, mood. So the foods, just that connection between what we eat, not just fueling our body, but fueling our minds. All of us for that matter, right? And there's a lot of focus on it for elderly, for the seniors. There's a little more focus now for pregnancy, and hopefully through conversations like these, more for kids as well.
Yeah. No, I think that that's really important. And one of the things, we're talking obviously about the first 3 years of life, but for those of you watching, it is important to know that the brain is constantly evolving and really not done cooking until we're in our mid-20s, depending on the gender that we're talking about. And so, I work a lot with teenagers where they're not eating great, not sleeping great. And this really comes into play in that conversation as well. And I digress. We'll go back to the young kids. Yeah. The one thing that I do want to ask you, the three of you, is, I do a lot of work with nutritionists and dietitians and pediatricians, and I get questions all the time from parents. Oh, my child didn't want to eat a meal, or we've had a really bad couple days, and I'm really concerned. And the response that I've always given, and the other experts that I work with have always said is, we look at the diet of a young child really over the course of like a 4 to 7 day window and not in the vacuum of a single day. And so it's important for parents, if anyone who's watching is feeling stressed out that their child maybe had a bad day of eating and missed a meal, went to bed, they think hungry, or that's not actually the way that it works. If any of you disagree, or I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Because I think it's important I really think this is so important for parents to understand that when we think about and look at our child's nutrition, that we can look at it more holistically over the course of days. So if you have a day where your child does want to only eat mac and cheese, it's okay if the next day they're getting some roasted broccoli and maybe some chicken breast and, or soup or some other things. So what do you think about that?
I'd love to start on that.
Please.
Partly because we developed our meal system to deliver 100% daily nutrition, and it's measured down to the gram or whatnot, just to take the guesswork out of it for parents. At the same time, it is not as though diets are so prescriptive, and we need to listen to our baby's cues. We need to use our own intuition. We need to give ourselves some grace, understand that especially as the babies become toddlers and have so much more of a personality about what they're eating.
That's a lovely way to put it, Katie.
It requires negotiation. Right? Just to not to not stress too much, right? That to think about what they've had in a day. I always think about the colors that they've had. Have they kind of eaten the rainbow? Have they had, protein and some fiber and some healthy fats? But to look more at, a day's or a week's worth of nutrition and understanding that, yes, some days you're just not going to fall on that sword and you're going to let my children beg for the chicken nuggets and the mac and cheese. And I will do that, and I'll throw a roasted veggie or some other, nutritional win on there. But certainly food should also be fun and not a fight. And I think especially as kids get older, we want them to have a good relationship with food. And I think that starts really early on with palate development, but definitely carries on in toddler and childhood years. You don't want every meal to be a fight. That is not going to set them up for success.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I think that we have, as parents, and especially right now, a lot on our minds, a lot to worry about. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, just having that toolkit of options so that you don't feel like you have to live by a rigid prescriptive thing every single day, and to just be cognizant of the various, things that are good for the growing bodies and minds, but not every day is going to be perfect. So that's right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so Dr. Friedman, let me ask you, doing like the science and understanding the science behind this and knowing what's missing and currently in the marketplace, are there other things that parents have asked you in your practice specific to nutrition that you feel that it's missing in the conversation that's being had currently?
So, I would say what I'm getting asked a lot right now, because we're in a pandemic, are there certain foods and nutrients that will help boost my child's immunity? And the answer is yes, there is. But really, it's also about, a well-balanced diet, supplementation, elderberry. A lot of people ask me, what do your kids take? My children take elderberry, vitamin C. Child Life Essential is delicious. My kids love taking them. They never fight me on it.
Do they have an elderberry supplement?
They do.
I did not know that. And what age does it go up to?
I'm not sure. But elderberry, I take elderberry. So yeah. You mean as far as how low does it go or how high does it go?
Yeah. Can tweens and teens take it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And it's about we talk a lot about getting things that people that goes over people's heads, getting a good night's sleep, right? Our kids are constantly on screens, and their sleep patterns are changing drastically over the pandemic. So, getting them on a good sleep pattern, it actually changes their appetite, the way that they eat the next day, the way that they feel the next day. So getting a good night's sleep, getting them outside, getting some exercise, good nutrients, it's all immune boosting. All of that is going to help. Good supplementation, all of that's going to help to build the immunity. Is it an insurance policy? No, we know we're parents, kids get sick any way you slice it. But practicing these good habits really help a lot. They are the tools in our tool chest to really help push along immunity. And also, if anything's actually come out of the pandemic, I think we've really focused on hand washing and, the importance of hand washing and the importance of social distancing and courtesy and sneezing into the elbow and those types of things that really, we really didn't discuss over the last few years. Even when we talk about flu season, it's not really something that we talk about. I do, obviously, but I don't feel like it's something that's in the media. So I would say that a lot of people, that's really the focus of the questions that I'm seeing right now, as far as right now in this moment, is what nutrients, what supplements can help with immune boosting. And to speak about brain development, I think it's even more important now than it's ever been, because our children are having such a hard time on screens all day and trying to concentrate and trying to get through academia when it's really not that engaging and it's not really, it's really not that fun to be on a screen all day long. So supplementing, I actually, my son now takes DHA all the time. That's in our vitamin routine.
And it helps with immunity too, right, Dr. Katie?
Yeah, it does. It's
another immune booster.
Are the Child Life Essentials The DHA, are they chewables? Are they gummies or are they hard?
They have chewables. I don't know if you could see it.
But they're not gummies, right? They're hard, like
they're
vitamins.
hard.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, and it says someone's chiming saying that there are gummies as well. So that's great, depending on what is preference for your kids. Because I know, again, that goes back to palate. And some kids like a gummy and some kids like to actually chew something that's like crunchy.
Yeah, Child Life Essential is great in the sense that in a lot of their different lines, they have a syrup, they have a gummy, they have a chewable, they have different variants of it and different options. So like, you know, if your kid doesn't like vitamins, let's say, they have they'll have like a syrup and you can make that into a smoothie. You can put that in the smoothie.
It's honestly what sold me on Child Life Essentials when I first started giving them, because my kids used to eat oatmeal every morning and I would do the First Defense liquid and I would just stick it in there every morning in their oatmeal and they had no clue and they loved it. Exactly. And it like added flavor. It also added a really great flavor to the oatmeal. And yeah, I mean, again, I absolutely love the First Defense from Child Life Essentials. I think it's like one of the best products out there.
And their Instagram has a lot of really good, cute, if you ever need them, like recipes of how to incorporate vitamins into. Oh,
that's great.
Yeah, it's really interactive. They have really cute videos.
That's really interesting. So I'll save this for the Q&A, but so Katie, just hold on to this. I'm curious if you actually if you put vitamins into the Square Baby, like, you know, that, so we have to wrap up in a minute, but I definitely want to talk about that in the Q&A. We have just a couple minutes left. So I wanted to ask each of you if you could tell me, what is the best piece of advice that you could give to families or anyone who's watching with regards to staying sane right now, specifically as it pertains to eating and feeding your kids. And I mean, I think there have already been some gems that have come out of this, you know, like to do this gracefully and to be kind to yourself and to not stress if a day doesn't go great. But what else would you say to parents watching? Tina, why don't we start with you from Brainiac?
I think that I was always an online grocery shopper before the pandemic, so I was on that train a while ago. But I think that the access, I think there was someone on earlier, the zero grocery, the access and the options.
Yeah.
And you can order Square online. Like the access that we have now to get stuff to our homes.
It's incredible.
And so talk about like parenting wins and toolkits. Like it's just incredible. Like even from, 3 years ago when I had my son, it's just a different world. So I would say that keeps me sane. That keeps my family sane. My 5-year-old loves to do the online grocery shopping with me and order, our favorites. You can get Brainiac online. So you order your favorite snacks with them online. So it's one of those, like, it's become a new ritual versus like a going to the store. And not that she needs more screen time, but.
I would say cooking with your kids. I mean, we're all cooking more at home than we ever had because who's been leaving their house. I cannot wait to go out to a meal at some point. Obviously when you cook with your kids, they're so much more willing to try new foods. They're proud of it. It was their idea. And it encourages you too to, think of new recipes and kind of mix it up.
And I think, especially if they're home, just having a variety of different snacks that are healthy is really like, whether it's, chopped up strawberries or whatever it is that they are, it's a good opportunity, I would say, while we are in the pandemic, to really fill your refrigerator with different things that they are willing to eat. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but like now that my kids are home, like I feel like they're eating all the time, like 24/7, they're constantly asking me for food. So I do think it allows us to have that opportunity to kind of try different things with them. And I 100% agree with both of you guys. The best way to get your child to do anything, potty training, eating, is to get them involved. Let them cook with you. Let them grocery shop with you. Let them pick out their vitamins in the morning. Like, let them decide when they want to take it, or what they, how they want to take it. Is it a smoothie? And getting them involved like that and allowing them to have some control is really powerful for them. That, they're little minds and they really want that. They really want that authority. And I find that that's the most helpful tip I can give people, is to get them involved.
I know we're running out of time. One really great resource for that just came out. I don't know if anyone's seen Waffles and Mochi. It's Michelle Obama's new show, Partnership for a Healthy American nonprofit that we partner with. They're doing a whole Pass the Love campaign. So if you go to the Waffles and Mochi site, they have all sorts of activities and ways to get your kids involved in cooking and finding out about ingredients, and a lot of ways to donate so that they can get meals to families in need. So just on that vein.
I love that. And I will just add, and I know, Tracy, we have to finish up, but I'll just add, even pulling it back one step further, one of the things that I like to do with kids is actually bring out old-fashioned cookbooks and having them go through and look at pictures, especially with the little ones who can't read. And you can say to them, what looks good? What do you want to try? And then you can incorporate them even into the shopping. Even if you're Instacarting online, you can show them, these are also life skills. And so from the perspective of someone who's teaching about behavior, this is really teaching kids all about, prep from A to Z. Like, how do we go from thinking about what we want to eat to then actually having it and putting those healthy foods in our body. So, and I love, what you're all saying is so spot on. The involving them in this is absolutely, and modeling it and doing it yourself, it's the best way to get them to do it. So on that note, I want to thank you all so much. It's been so fun talking to you. We get to keep talking. We're just going to go to a different format, right, Tracy?
Yep. So thank you guys so much. This has been great. And we definitely are going to send you guys over to sessions now for your Q&A. And you can definitely keep the conversation going. I know you started some conversations you wanted to finish. So when you get there, we will do that. And I want to thank you guys again for your time. And we will see you. It usually takes a couple of minutes to get over there, but we will see you over there.
We'll see you there.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.